Hello there and welcome back to Game a Movie Recap. Today I'm going to recap Once in the Desert, 2022 Russian war film. Based on a true story, the film follows the life of a veteran deminer on a perilous mission to defuse explosives in the ISIS-liberated cultural city of Palmyra in Syria, to make way for an important peacekeeping concert. But before we start, please support our channel by subscribing and click the bell icon for future notifications. Now, let's start. The movie begins in the Syrian city of Palmyra's desert. Captain Dima Shabarov, a Russian explosives expert, arrives at a remote location to oversee the transfer of captives. Shortly after their arrival at the base, he begins training the Syrian Special War Explosive Ordnance Disposal Team. He emphasizes the significance of safely handling firearms magazines, instructing them on the proper methods for disarming a syringe mine and a gyroscopic bomb. He cautions them against tampering with the gyroscope-equipped explosive device and demonstrates how to safely extract it using a grappling hook. Captain Shabarov confiscates a trainee's cell phone and instructs them to successfully complete their training before retrieving it. He reminds the team that geolocation devices are prohibited on the base and affixes the phone to the bulletin board. Finally, he issues orders for them to embark on their combat mission later that day. In the following scene, Captain Dima Shabarov and his disposal team board a military vehicle and head toward Palmyra City. They encounter a checkpoint and are instructed to inspect the minefields before proceeding. The team members are filled with joy, knowing that their army has liberated the city from the ISIS militia. Captain Shabarov assembles his deminers and briefs them, reminding them that 3 Iranian deminers lost their lives in the same area before them. He motivates them, stressing that to earn their deminer certificate, they must clear the field first. As they enter the field, Muslim discovers a landmine just a few steps ahead. Captain Shabarov immediately orders everyone to retreat while he closely monitors Muslim's efforts to defuse the bomb. Muslim successfully cuts the wire and renders the bomb safe. They exchange congratulations and inquire about their certificates, to which the captain responds that they will receive them at the base. At this moment, a Syrian woman named Jamila approaches them and offers water. She had observed their courageous work and was deeply impressed. She introduces herself to Captain Shabarov and requests a conversation with him. She explains that she used to be a guide before the war and becomes curious about why he was on the phone. He confides in her, sharing that he wanted to call his daughter Tatiana, who was about to get married. Jamila finds him easy to talk to. However, his assistant, Ryad, interrupts and asks the captain to join them for a group photo. Captain Shabarov excuses himself from Jamila, but notices that the team has left their equipment on the road. Suspicion creeps in, and he urgently calls out to them to return and retrieve their equipment. Suddenly, while Captain Dima Shabarov was carefully observing his team, a landmine unexpectedly detonates, causing a devastating explosion that takes the lives of everyone present and leaves many others severely injured, including Jamila. In the chaotic aftermath, Captain Shabarov regains consciousness and hurriedly checks on his team, only to find that all of them have tragically perished. With a heavy heart and the bag belonging to Jamila in hand, Captain Shabarov searches for her and eventually finds her sheltered behind the van. Amidst the chaos, a helicopter arrives with rescuers on board, ready to evacuate the survivors. However, Captain Shabarov, despite his own injuries, refuses to board the chopper until Jamila is safely rescued as well. The rescuers comply, returning to retrieve Jamila and placing both of them on stretchers before airlifting them out of the hazardous area. Several days later, Captain Shabarov has recovered sufficiently and finds himself facing an interrogation by higher-ranking Russian military officials at the base. They inquire about the events surrounding the blast and note his discomfort with the investigation. In response, the officer in charge decides to send him back home to Russia the following day. Captain Shabarov seeks out the head nurse and inquires about the fate of the girl, Jamila, who had accompanied him. She informs him that the Syrian survivors had been transported to the TARDIS base. As Captain Shabarov prepares to depart for Russia, he encounters a surprising sight on the runway. His previous team members, including Lieutenant Zilan, Makaraski, and Kostya, along with others, are disembarking from a plane. Captain Dima approaches Captain Kostya and is introduced to Kostya's new explosives disposal team. As they stand in formation, a high-ranking general passes by, setting the stage for a new chapter in Captain Shabarov's journey. The General Mayor calls Captain Dima, and Dima rushes over to him. The General Mayor inquires about Dima's involvement with Kostya's team. Dima explains that he's sharing his expertise with Kostya's team and mentions his intention to return home. However, the general mayor insists that Dimma stays, emphasizing his role in logistics and hinting at a significant operation planned for Palmyra. He extends an offer to Dimma to join a special unit, which Dimma accepts. Shortly thereafter, Dimma finds himself on the Orange Orchard Road with his new team. They receive intelligence about a battle unfolding to their left in the desert. Dimma suggests a brief stop at a specific location, revealing that his previous team is buried there. He steps out, encounters Syrian soldiers, and inquires about Jamila. Unexpectedly, Riyadh emerges from behind the tents, and both are surprised to see each other alive. They discuss their former team and Jamila, exchange contact information, and part ways. Together with their tanks, they head to the battlefield in Homs, fighting alongside Ali Baba's team against ISIS militants. Meanwhile, as the battle rages on, Captain Dimma receives a phone call from Jamila. He informs her that they are currently engaged in the fight and will reunite in Palmyra afterward. Dimma becomes deeply engrossed in the combat, displaying remarkable bravery by rescuing one of the Syrian tank operators from a blazing tank and returning them to the safety of their lines. After some time, they reach the Orange Orchard and commence the meticulous task of checking for landmines. Captain Dimma detects tripwires and immediately orders the unit to hold their positions. He alerts them to the presence of an IED rigged to the trees. They retreat to deploy robots to handle the disposal of these IEDs. Dimma confers with Kostya, expressing the need for extensive work in the orchard and suggesting they guide the unit to the predetermined rendezvous point. Subsequently, a disposal robot vehicle is dispatched to the orchard, beginning the process of safely detonating the concealed IEDs. Upon completing this dangerous task, they'd finally arrive in Palmyra. Both Captain Dimma and Captain Zhelin visit an internet cafe, where they connect with their daughters. Tatiana ends their conversation, citing her busy schedule, while the locals join Zhelin as he dances for his young daughter. In the following moments, they proceed to an abandoned gas factory where they uncover additional explosives concealed behind barrels. Captain Dimma notes that the mobile bomb is fully armed, indicating that the militants responsible may be nearby. He decides that they will inspect the area only after defusing the bomb. Dimma is provided with a fuse, a detonator, and a tight 5-minute window to complete his task. Suddenly, Dimma becomes suspicious and turns back, discovering a hidden wire beneath the sand. He follows it to find 2 militants holding the detonation button. A skirmish ensues as he engages in combat with them, while his team remains on high alert for battle. Dimma successfully eliminates the militants, disconnects the explosives, and signals to his team that the area is secure. While inspecting the belongings of the ISIS terrorists, Captain Dimma comes across a capacitor, realizing that the threat is still active. This unfamiliar technique raises concerns for him. They all retreat to a safe distance and take cover. Meanwhile, they spot a heavily armored suicide truck heading towards the factory, loaded with explosives. The unit positions itself to neutralize the threat, but the terrorist keeps advancing. Captain Dimma takes refuge in a pit to take a shot, but the terrorist manages to evade their attacks. It's Captain Zhelin's rocket launcher that eventually disables the truck, resulting in a devastating explosion due to the explosives stored in the factory. Upon returning to the checkpoint, Captain Zhelin reports to the Major General Mayor that Captain Dimma did not follow his orders. He emphasizes Dimma's critical role as a demoner within their unit and the necessity of his skills. The Major General chastises Dimma, stressing that while mines may be recoverable, not every risk is justifiable. However, Dimma defends his actions, presenting the report and arguing that the risk was warranted. Captain Zhelin adds that Dimma brought an IED into a personnel area, and Lieutenant Makarsky corroborates the claim. Despite the objections, the general relieves Dimma of his duties and suspends his missions. As Dimma is being transported back to the base, he implores Zhelin to allow him to accompany them to a village called Tavalva, where ISIS has planted bombs in a well. Initially hesitant, Zhelin eventually relents when he witnesses the perilous situation at the well, realizing the urgency of the matter. Soon after, a loud explosion rocks the checkpoint, prompting Dimma to ready the Syrian unit to join him in heading to the village. He commandeers their pickup and rushes to Tavalva, where he takes on the ISIS terrorists and engages in combat to eliminate the threat. After some time when they clear the area, he discovers the lifeless remains of the demoners. A local interpreter informs him that both demoners, including Zhelin, have perished. While it remains uncertain whether Jilin met his demise during the operation, the interpreter asserts that he has indeed passed away. Carrying his toy camel, he returns to the internet cafe, where he contacts his wife and daughter to deliver the grievous news. His daughter Lisa implores him to bring her father back, making a heartfelt promise. He assures her and concludes the call. The following day, he approaches the commanding officer, who reveals that Jilin's body has been taken for ransom. He pleads to be included in the mission to identify and retrieve Jilin, but is met with refusal, as the ransom terms have already been established. They board a helicopter and head to the location to recover Jilin's remains. Upon arrival, they are unexpectedly ambushed by an allied group of ISIS militants, who use a rocket launcher to down their chopper. Pursuing them to the crash site. Back at their base, they deduce that the ambush was premeditated, indicating a continued deception by their adversaries. The Major General orders the destruction of the mining factory, and fighter jets are dispatched to obliterate the designated target. At night, the general pays a visit and instructs Colonel Dimma to prepare for a mission in Palmyra. By morning, they are en route to the city. Along the way, they make a detour to meet Riyadh, a former member of their disposal team, and present him with his demoning certificate. They share a moment of mourning for their fallen comrades before Colonel Dimma continues his journey to the recently liberated Palmyra. As he surveys the city's ruins, Colonel Dimma's thoughts turn to Jamila. He seeks assistance from a local vendor to locate an address and is guided to Jamila's place. Their conversation touches upon the recent attack, and Jamila encourages him to call his daughter to congratulate her on her wedding. They have a brief conversation with his daughter, and after bidding farewell to Jamila, he proceeds to the outskirts of the city with a small contingent of the Syrian army. Their objective is to rendezvous with ISIS and receive Jilin's body. Upon reaching a market, individuals claiming to be militants from Jaish al-Shem arrive in a van, purportedly carrying a dead body. The Syrian soldier accompanying Colonel Dimma requests to inspect the body, but they demand payment first. Colonel Dimma excuses himself to make a phone call, only to find themselves ambushed when he returns. A fierce firefight ensues, and they successfully neutralize all the militants. Colonel Dimma checks the body, only to discover that it is not Jilin. One of the Syrian soldiers hands Colonel Dimma a terrorist's phone. As he examines the photos and videos on the device, shock courses through him when he discovers evidence suggesting that Jamila is a spy for ISIS. He is deeply disturbed as he watches the incriminating video and recalls the day of the attack when he first encountered her. It dawns on him that everything had been fine that day when the jammer was active, but once it was turned off, Jamila had made a call, resulting in the devastating explosion that claimed many lives. Filled with a mix of anger and determination, Colonel Dimma immediately heads to Jamila's home. His shock intensifies when he finds her playing with one of the terrorists. In a heated moment, he takes a life, shouting at her to raise her hands. It becomes evident that she has been collaborating with the terrorist group Jaish al-Shem. She reveals that a deal has been struck with them. They will transfer Jilin in exchange for Jihadi John, who she claims is still alive. The rendezvous for the exchange is set at 12 noon near the dried-up river, and she has been tasked with delivering Jihadi John to them. As Colonel Dimma prepares to leave, he abruptly turns and fires a fatal shot at Jamila. The next day, they head out to the dried-up river for the captive exchange. The story comes full circle to where it began. Jihadi John has been brought to the designated location, with snipers on standby and drones monitoring the situation closely. Captain Dimma approaches John to facilitate Jilin's release and hands him over. They hurriedly retreat to their waiting vehicles. However, Captain Dimma is met with a horrifying sight as he realizes that Jilin is bound with explosives. In a tense and frantic moment, he implores Jilin to remain still and begins the arduous task of defusing the bombs. Time is running out, and the pressure is immense. Captain Dimma removes his jacket and searches for the wires to disconnect the bomb. To his shock, he discovers a gyroscopic trigger and only a very short time to defuse it. He instructs Jilin to carefully slide out of the explosive vest and urges him to run for cover. Within seconds, the explosive vest detonates and Captain Dimma sacrifices himself to save Jilin. The movie concludes with a poignant scene where Captain Dimma embraces his daughter, who is dressed in bridal attire, symbolizing his enduring love and sacrifice for his family and country. The end. What do you think of the movie? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to hit like and support the channel by subscribing, and click the bell icon so that you won't miss our future recaps. And if you have any movie you want us to recap, please do tell us in the comments section as well. And until next time.